Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
Coming up on the Payoff, we're going old school with you on this episode. Turning back the clock, I got somebody from my home group here in Texas that's going to join us. If you know what home group is, well, then you've come to the right place. If you don't, then we've saved you a seat. But either way, if you think you have a problem with alcohol or drugs, or maybe somebody in your life does, this is one of those stories and one of those people who is going to inspire you. Also could trigger some emotions. It was just an incredible talk. I love Kristine. I've known her for about 5 years now, I guess, maybe more. And she's one of those people you want to be around. They say stick with the winners. She is a winner. But first, I got to put some of his new music on here. Kevin Souza. What is your sobriety date?
March 14, 2012.
Okay. So 11 years?
Now, see, I learned a lesson. I just this weekend went to the International Women's Conference, and get this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So I got you coming in hot.
It was amazing, and I got to. That's a big long story, but I was on a panel. So it was 3,000 women. I wasn't. The panel itself only had 250 up in Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm it's myself and two other women, and then the chairperson, and she comes in, she says, what's your date? And it's real loud. You can imagine 250 women, you know. And I said March 14, 2012. And so she proceeded to ask, which I couldn't hear, but she proceeded to ask the other two panelists. And she came around to me, she said, you have the least amount of time, you're going first. And I thought, what? She said, you've got 10 years. And I said, but she said, you've got 10 years. I'm like, well, in 3 weeks I'll have 11.
And so you went first?
You have 10 years, but isn't that an alcoholic thing to do? I've got 11 years. No, you don't.
Well, I just gave you 11. Yeah.
So that's it. 2012. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of was rude, but yeah, I will have 11 years.
So, and that, by the way, is one of the things that makes you so attractive in this program, is that you're still chasing it. You're still going to those conferences. What does experiences like that and connecting with women like that do for you, do for your soul?
Oh my gosh. It's blood, it's air, it's food, it's water, it's it feeds my soul. It feeds my soul. And when I got there, you know, when I first got there, I was under the impression there were going to be 3 other women in my group that were going too. So it was going to be a girls' weekend kind of thing. Well, it didn't work out that way. And so I found myself.
So you went by yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't know that until I was already up there, checked into the hotel, and over at the venue where this.
And 2 people bailed, basically.
And one person bailed, and the other 2. Anyway,
stuff happens.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah. So I go to sit down for dinner that Thursday night, and Pete, I sat there, and it occurred to me, I'm 53 years old. I don't think I've ever sat in a restaurant by myself and had a meal. I mean, I sat there, and as soon as I realized that, I grabbed my phone and I texted my husband and I said, "Oh my God, I'm such a loser." And he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Everybody's looking at me." And he said, "No, I'm sure." No, yeah. And I'm like, "I'm telling you, everybody's looking at me thinking I'm a fucking loser." And I sat there, and I mean, I kept my head down. This is, and I work this program to, and so I'm sitting there and I'm eating my tacos with my head down, you know. And within about 10 minutes, another lady walked by me, and she said, "Can I sit here? Can I sit here with you?" And I kind of looked at her and I'm like, "Hell yeah, you can sit down." You know, and she said, "I'm here by myself, and I don't think I've ever eaten in a restaurant by myself." And I said, "Well, I have, because I have officially, I haven't, you know, just 10 minutes previous." Yeah. But I said, sit down, tell me about you. And it was like God did for me what I couldn't do for myself right then. Yeah. And it was just one of those things that just more duct tape to hold this freaking mess together. that I need. That was just another layer of duct tape that I needed to go, okay, I'm not going home tonight. Because I was telling my husband, I said, I think I'm going to hit this evening meeting and then I'm just going to come home, And so that made me stay, at least until the next morning. And then there was something else that made me stay, And by the end of it, I was proud of myself, and I try not to be proud of myself too often. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you can get out of control. I can.
Pride can get, And so, but I was like, damn it, I did that. I did that. I went and walked into meetings by myself. I did, and I mean, it may not be a big deal to other
No, it
people,
is. Well, it's a big deal to me, and most people hopefully listen to this podcast are, searching for or have found recovery because you go to it just shows every day is a new day.
Right.
You can go up into that conference buttoned up, looking good, feeling good, but then like the moment things change, right? Like how are things going when they're not going well?
Right.
And then you stick it out, you stay, and it's like, oh, that's right. It's just another thing you walk through.
But in learning more about yourself and your capabilities and because I was like, I can do that.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the deal: realizing that anguish that I was feeling, I was just doing it to myself. Nobody gave a shit about me sitting at that table. Nobody gave a crap about what I was eating tacos by myself at a table. But in my mind, which I'm still just as batshit crazy as I was on March 13th, 2012.
Me too.
But anyway, so man.
But did you want the last thing on this? Did you want the person? Because I have the thing too, where I'm sitting down, I'm by myself. I'm sort of resenting whatever happened, the situation that created this. And then the person comes by and I'm like, oh shit, don't sit here. Right. But then you invite them, you kind of, for me, it's like you go against that inner voice that says that fear or whatever. You invite them to sit down and then like magic starts to happen.
I don't think she could have walked away without sitting down. I would have tackled her and put her in that chair. But in what was great, Pete, is because instantly when she looked at me and said, can I sit here? I knew that she was there to save me. If that makes, I know that sounds dramatic,
but you're in tune.
I knew that she was there for a reason, and so that's why I was like, "You're damn right. You sit down. That's your chair." It was.
How long did it take you to start? Will be 11 years in March, God willing, right? Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to start thinking like that?
Oh, Lord.
To start thinking, okay, this just happened for a reason. Let me seize it, rather than because even in sobriety, you cannot see those signs. If you're still.
It did take. I was one of those burning bush, bright light recoveries. I mean, it was instant with my. It was 1 second I was seizing, about to die, going to go home and kill myself drunk, and within a second, God saved me for whatever reason, yet to be disclosed. So I didn't know who God was, but I knew something happened, and I knew I would never drink again. I know we're not supposed to say that, but that was resolve. It's indescribable. But it took me forming a relationship because I can fall in love and still not trust you, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so trust is something that is earned over time. So to answer your question, it was a couple of years before it was before I was, because it took other people that were smarter than me, more experienced than me, to go, well, have you considered that maybe that was a gift from God? And
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, yeah.
You start seeing things totally different. Yeah.
And I still go through that. Yeah. I still will be in a pity party and in the middle of a shit show and someone I trust go, oh, I wonder if you're being taught something, and that's where I can take the venom out of what I'm feeling and go, oh, okay. So it's certainly not instant. And here's the deal. I don't want it to ever be instant, because when something is instant, I'll take it for granted.
Yeah. Well, you have to work for it a little bit.
Yeah. And you have to be open. Uh-huh. You have to be, I had to be open in that moment to her being a gift to me, instead of looking up and thinking, okay, what do you want from me? What do you, because instantly, like when someone rings your phone and they're like, hey, how are you? And you're like, okay, what are you selling? Yeah. It's like, no, I'm just saying, how are you? Yeah. So yeah, it took a little bit of time. Practice of being open, having that radar up.
All right. So I want to get back to how we got here. Do you remember your first drink or when it was, you had that experience that kind of, alcohol or whatever else it was kind of changed the way you were thinking, and you liked it?
Oh gosh, I was 11 or 12.
You grew up in Texas, right?
Up in Plano, yeah.
Okay, so around the Dallas area.
And I grew up in an alcoholic family. My dad was a raging alcoholic, and a lot of people describe that first drink as of it. I was able to release the inhibitions. I felt more like myself. For me, it helped me go away. It just helped my mind just go away. To where I stopped thinking. I do remember that even at that young of age. And I could take you back to the skating rink if it's still there, outside the skating rink, and it was Country Quencher Apple.
That was what you drank,
right? Yeah, yeah. Got wasted, yeah. And then it was older people that I was hanging out with. I always looked older than my age, and they actually dropped me off on my front porch of my house. Like loaded, yeah. Mm-hmm. And of course, hell rained down with parents and mess like that. But I just remember being able to go away in my mind, stop thinking. And I didn't know I had racing thoughts. I didn't know I was being tormented in my own head. Yeah. Until
you started to drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you felt that sense of relief. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And did it keep going? Did you?
No. I mean, it wasn't. And up until, golly, I'm 53 now. Up until my mid 30s or so, I was a social drinker. I mean, I was one of those where I could have one drink and as normal as you could describe normal as far as a drinker, And one of my sons had asked me one time, Mom, when did you know you were an alcoholic? And it's like, I don't. And a lady yesterday that I had lunch with asked me, when did you know you were an alcoholic? It's like, and I had a glass of tea in front of me with that meeting with her, and I said it was as if there was an alcoholic beverage on the table, and I was normal, and I picked up my tea and I took a sip, and I said, and then I was an alcoholic. I don't know what activated that disease. But when it was activated, there was no turning back.
And so do you consider it was activated when you were 11 or when you were in your late 30s? Or do you think it was there?
I think it was activated at birth, quite frankly.
Yeah,
the ability was there.
Yeah.
I just had to fulfill it. And that's what I've told my three biological children. It's like, okay, statistically, I hate to tell you, but one of you's in trouble, at least. So why would you even take that chance? So and that's hard to. And they're normal drinkers right now, and God willing, they'll stay that way. But until they don't, I mean, that's the frightening part about this disease is you never know when it's going to show itself.
And that is amazing too, because for me, I drank and I was like I was just an insecure kid. So when I drank, it removed all the fears, right? Mm-hmm. It got rid of all of them. And so this was my ticket to ride, alcoholism was. And so from that point forward, I constantly saw myself putting it in front of whatever else I wanted to achieve or do. Alcohol was part of that, and it was part of my regression ultimately. And then part of like getting sober. Springboard.
So I have a question for you, and I was thinking about this for some reason on the way down here. When was the first time you felt like you belonged somewhere? Was it while drinking?
Well, I mean, there was it's funny. My brothers had great friends that would come over, and they had warm energy, and there was no drinking connected to it. I just felt like I belonged, hanging out with these guys, getting kind of shit on by them. It was great, older people, and I had a great experience. But that first night, I can remember being outside with my buddies. Like I drank once, got drunk and got sick, my brother at a party. But then I was probably a freshman in high school and I started to drink. And I just felt, finally, I don't have to go to the party and be a wallflower and be so scared of everything, of all these new people and all these new girls. And it was like, I always loved sports and I consider myself a happy kid because I just think I was like in a good situation. But man, that whole like the next level of like leaving your house and doing something other than playing sports.
Right.
Or okay, go to the class, sit here, don't move. Anything other than that, I was like, it was crazy.
Sure.
So yeah, that's when I felt like I belonged. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was thanks to alcohol. At least I thought, right? So
see, with me, I think I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not sure what started this thinking driving down here today. But the first time I felt like I belonged was literally on March 14, 2012, when I went upstairs to change my date, and I sat down. I for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere.
Yeah,
and that feeling of you can't describe it, and it because I felt like all that time I had been carrying this massive trunk with me with all of these masks that I needed to be this person when I was with this or this one. Oh, I'm going here. I need this one, or I forgot. I got to look that. So I had to carry all these with me, and I was tired.
Yeah.
I was tired of lugging that around, and the idea of leaving that in the parking lot and just letting you see me just and I cared what the results of that was, but I was willing to chance it for the first time in reality. I was willing to take that chance. That I just was willing to take that chance, and I just belonged.
And did it pay? So almost like right away, you experienced some of the positive results. Like, finally.
Well, of course, in my world, changing your date is, man, I would rather eat.
So you were in and out for a little bit.
No, I was in and out of sobriety for a little, but this was my first time to change a date because I was going to the program for about 4 months, not working it at all the way it's
were you
meant
drinking?
to be worked. Mouthwash.
Okay.
Yeah.
I tried that. Yeah.
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 It works.
It works.
It works. And the disease that I had, I was actually upset with people that were upset with me because it wasn't alcohol. What they had to be mad about? What was the big? That's how sick I was.
Yeah, sure.
Until March 13th, 2012, when my oldest son found me passed out in my car. I had been driving with a Sam-sized bottle of Listerine in my lap.
I remember this now because I've heard your story, and that's one of the many reasons I wanted to talk to you. And you mentioned that it worked for you. Were you drinking it like at night as like a nightcap, the mouthwash, or were you drinking it during the day?
All of it.
And it was changing the way that you felt?
100%.
Okay. Yeah.
100%. Enough that I passed out from it.
And it wasn't alcohol. So,
To me it wasn't. And that, again, I think about that now, and it just, it's almost comical how could I not, but that's how sick I was. Yeah. That is how sick I was, that I couldn't see. I just couldn't see, and I think that's where the desperation, when my son said to me, "Mom, is it bad that I wish that bottle was vodka?" My soul died. My soul just, that's when I decided to take my life. That's when I had to put me out of their misery.
Put me out of their misery. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, because I just couldn't believe that I was that person. And then the phone rang.
And then the phone rang.
And it was this annoying ass woman that I had met at a meeting, and so it was now I see it was God.
Yeah, now it was what we talked about at the beginning.
It was the woman walking up saying, "Can I sit here?"
Yeah.
But
almost like the same.
It was the
person.
Exact same. Yeah, and she said she knew what I was planning. She just knew. And she said, "Will you give me an hour? I don't, she kept saying, I don't know what you're going to do with the rest of your day, but will you give me just an hour? Will you meet me at a meeting?" And of course I, came up with every excuse and saying no. And she just was.
This is the same day?
The same day. And she said, just give me an hour. Finally I agreed. I said, "Oh, fine." And I remember driving into town, and I was crying in such a way that I sounded like an animal. That's the only way I can describe it. Or you can say it was demons screaming, or whatever. That scared me more than what I planned on doing, because I had an array of opioids and all kinds of medicines that I planned on choking down when I got home. But I was just done. I was done with me.
Yeah. So it's like you want out either way, whether you're going to go out the tragic way, right? We talk about like with suicide, like you mentioned. I even hate saying the word. Or
it's so real. Yeah, say it, man.
Or you're going to get, it is so real. Or you're going to get sober and lose this person.
That wasn't even an option.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think it was possible. Because now, mind you, I would sit and I just, I was one of those that would sit there and I would think, you people,
yeah,
that's cute. You're laughing. I don't laugh.
Yeah.
What is there to laugh at?
Yeah.
I couldn't comprehend. And especially they were talking about shit that was like, and then they had a car wreck and had to amputate an arm, and they were like, ha, 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 know. And I was like, why are you clearly are not an alcoholic the way I am, right? Because it wasn't until that moment that I even came to realize that I was an alcoholic. What the fuck, man?
Yeah.
It was so no, I was just going in to spend the hour because I told her I would. I didn't anticipate anything coming from that.
And so what happened when you spent the hour?
You
were outside,
it
right?
Wasn't even that hour. It was I drove up and she was in her car and she motioned for me to get in the passenger seat of her car. And I could take you to the parking space, and I was inconsolable. I was just inconsolable. And so she sat there and I heard her say, "I'm going to sit here until you can talk. I'll just be right here." And I just remember thinking, that's fucking weird.
While you're acting like...
Well, just that someone wouldn't be going, calm down, it's okay. She didn't try to do that.
Uh-huh.
She didn't try to do that. She didn't try to rob me of that moment.
And I know who this person is, and this person is very special.
Isn't that beautiful that she didn't try to rob me of that moment? She, 11 years, I go right back there. But she, I was just wailing. And she said, "I want you to close your eyes and I want you to ask God what he thinks about you." And I just thought, well, isn't that stupid? I know what I think about me, and that's all that matters. And I think that I don't deserve to be, and I don't deserve to be. That's a period ending statement right there. And so I
But that's not what she asked you.
Yeah. No, so she said it again. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to ask God what he thinks about you. And she ended up shouting at me.
From the host of the popular podcast, The Only One in the Room, Stash by Laura Cathcart Robbins is a propulsive and vivid memoir about the journey to sobriety and self-love amidst addiction, privilege, racism, and self-sabotage. Best-selling author Holly Whitaker calls it an irresistibly delicious story. And MacArthur Foundation fellow and best-selling author Kiese Lehman says Stash is emotionally riveting. Buy Stash by Laura Cathcart Robbins now, wherever books are sold.
Hey there, homeowners. Is it time to give your yard a complete makeover this summer? Villani Landshapers, a local family-owned business, has been transforming landscapes for more than 20 years. Villani Landshapers specializes in landscape design build, retaining walls, outdoor living spaces, and so much more. Request your free consultation today and check out their gallery of residential work at villani-landshapers.com.
I want you to close your eyes and ask God what he thinks about you. And so I can remember closing my eyes. And I said that out, I'm sure with an attitude. I said it in my head. What do you think about me? And she said, no, out loud. And I uttered those words. What do you think about me? And it was, instant. He said, you are worthy. It was instant. And I remember it's like I was instantly calm. And I looked at her, and you'd have thought she saw a ghost. I mean, she looked at me with such an oh shit, facial expression. And she said, what did he say? And I said, he said I was worthy. And she just said, are you ready to go up and change your date? And I said, let's go.
Wow.
It was instant. And I did. I marched up there, and like I said, for the first time, I belonged somewhere. Mm-hmm. I just belonged, and then because I knew I kind of thought there was a God before that day, but I thought it was the people who dressed up and went to the building with the T on the top of it, you know. I didn't have any concept whatsoever, and I had no clue who, what any that said you are worthy, but I heard it just as clear as I can hear your voice. So I knew there was something. So I knew all of this stuff that these people that I had heard, in these groups. I knew maybe something, maybe this is. I knew it was something because the resolve that it's like, okay, I knew I was never going to drink again. And like I said,
you knew at that moment, really.
I knew in a second. Yeah. Now going home and telling my husband was a whole nother thing, because he was like, oh, okay, well, we've said this before.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing that I can, again, looking back on it, is trying to figure out who or what told me I was worthy. Right. So that was like on a fact-finding mission. Mm-hmm. So I started to seek. And obviously seek in the literature that was presented to me, but then ultimately, I remember I was sitting in about the time I got sober was when the Bible television series came out. Roma Downey
sure.
and her husband, they did that, and I remember I was sitting there and we had turned it on, and Rick was behind me in the kitchen cooking supper. My husband cooking supper, and I was watching that. And I wished I remembered exactly what it was that they had said, but I had heard that, like the same kind of thing a couple of days ago in one of my meetings. And I thought, oh, I wonder if they know. I called my friend that had been with me during my experience. And I said, did you know that? And I just heard this, and it's on the Bible. And I wonder if and she's like, tell me more about that. She didn't say, yeah, dumbass. She did. She just said, tell me more. What do you think about that? The way that she nurtured that.
That's pretty unbelievable.
That fact-finding mission and that getting to know. She said, I wonder if the same God that they're talking about is the same one that told you were worthy. I just wonder. So she would leave me with these tidbits to go, oh, maybe. Okay. So who is, so the relationship, I was seeking that relationship.
Well, and one thing I noticed too, because it happened to me, it's all about our experiences, mm-hmm. What I think doesn't matter, but I know this is what happens, and because it happened for me and it happened for you. When you get off the debate squad and you stop, these people and there's no God or whatever, and you just buy in and you're done, stuff starts to happen like that, where you just start to hear messages and see things and everything especially when you're first sober and because you're excited about it. I was, mm-hmm. I don't know if you were, but I mean, it sure sounds like it was.
Oh, 100%.
You were seeking. You become a seeker and you start to see too.
Yeah. And I think this before the seeking just was the willing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know what it was, but I was willing to find out. And it almost became, and this is what I've shared with a lot of new people too. It almost became I don't want to call it a challenge, but to me it became a game. So something would happen, or I would see something, or I would hear something, and I would just think that, what if, just what if that was from God? What if that's, I'm going into this emotion, and this person sitting at the table next to me is talking about, something that I'm like, oh, I could do it that. What if that was from God? The email that I get from a friend I hadn't heard from in 2 years when I'm feeling lonely. What if that lady that came and said, can I sit here? What if that was God helping me?
Yeah.
You know, instead of just a happenstance, and she's a lonely, you know, loser, just like I was at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a matter. It's a change. It's change
It's
your
your-
mind.
well, you're
it's
willing.
change your thinking. Right. I'm willing to. I'm willing to think that is way more than just a happenstance.
Yeah.
Because I know nothing happens by happenstance. I know that to be a fact. You know. And
that's super attractive that people think like that and they're not, because when you first come around, you're just not sure.
You're
about,
just numb.
Yeah. And to see, I appreciate you taking us through that because it shows I didn't know or I wasn't sure. I became willing and now I know.
Right.
And it's, you know, it's a magical thing.
It is, you know, and you know when it becomes magical, Pete, for me is when I share that with. And not just with people like us, with a friend, you know, or an acquaintance, or even just
which part of it? The whole story you just said,
even just the hope, hope. I had no hope until God told me I was worthy. I had no hope. And you might go, hope for what? Hope for anything. Hope for me, hope for you, hope for the world, I had no hope.
Had you become a negative person?
Oh, jeez.
Really?
I was
because that's not really who you are.
I was a miserable asshole.
For how long in your marriage and with your kids?
Oh, for as long as I can remember. As long as I can remember. It was always they're out to get me. What do they want from me? They're doing this to me. It was. And I know that because I spot that in a second in people now. I can spot that in a second in someone that is just so consumed with me. Not selfish, but just lost in themselves. Whether there's alcohol or not, honey, that spiritual malady is just as real in, you know, they just don't have a source to numb themselves, you know.
I totally agree.
But I spot that. So yeah, I just remember being just as miserable, and that's like a sludge that just gets on anybody and everybody that comes around you.
Yeah, you
know, I mean, it affects your kids, and I'm still, you know, I'll be repairing that until the day I die. You know, all of the bad habits and thought patterns and that I taught my kids over those years. You know, you can't just because God said I was worthy doesn't mean they're, you know.
Well, yeah, but I mean, clearly you're doing a very good job of that. I would imagine almost 11 years in, and also I think that's another thing people. I don't know. I guess this is a little bit of like an unhealthy resentment I have against, like, people look at you as like, oh, you got sober, now everything's fine. It's like, oh, no.
Shit.
Like the consequences are still there, and that's a part of getting sober and the living amends, or some things never repair. But you do have the ability, or at least
at least you have a chance.
Yeah.
You know, you have a chance.
How did, just to go backwards a little bit, when you were in your, I guess, 30s, right? When the alcoholism really picked up, what kind of damage did it start to do? And but you mentioned opioids. Were you taking pills, or was that just?
I had started. It was 2011 when Amy Winehouse died.
Oh yeah.
And I know that. I
remember where I was. I was drunk as a skunk.
Right. Well, there you have it. I don't know if I could even tell you what one of her songs were, but I know that's when she died, because that is when my oldest daughter, orchestrated an intervention, and because she knew I had been prescribed Xanax, and Amy Winehouse, apparently it was alcohol and Xanax mixing, that got her. And so that's what.
How old was your daughter at the time?
Oh my gosh. She'll be 35 this year. So do my math for me. I can write a mortgage, but I can't.
Well, like 23.
12 years ago. Yeah.
23, yeah.
Yeah. So she got the family together, and that's when they shipped me down to Austin Recovery, and I went down there to shut them up. Right.
But also, just to jump in, that kind of starts the process, right? Like in a way, for me at least, when people started to really come down on me, I didn't even know it at the time, but like even going to meetings or a rehab to shut them up really does sort of starts the wheels in motion.
It does.
Maybe it didn't for you. It did for me.
It does. I learned. Here's the deal. I can see clearly where book smarts and how I was actually living, because I knew alcohol was the only drug you could die from the withdrawals from.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Not heroin, not cocaine, not meth.
Yeah.
Alcohol. So I learned that. Didn't give a shit, clearly, because that would have been an out for me. I see that clearly now. I got a DUI. Of course, that was back in 2004. That didn't deter me.
Yeah.
Just the disease, man.
You come off as a successful person now and an achiever. I didn't know you then. Would somebody that knew you at that time say the same?
Probably.
Yeah, on the outside you were still...
Because of that trunk of mass that I carried around. Man, I could...
You had all the bells and whistles.
I could look the part.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
I could look the part. Yeah.
Which sometimes...
But inside I was just dying.
But Kristine, sometimes that makes it harder for people to get sober, too. I mean, because you do have means, you have some success. A lot of people, if they can point to these things and say, well, alcoholics, right, don't have this. Like the under the bridge alcoholics, they don't have these things that I have. That can keep you drunk for a while.
Right. I didn't burn my entire life down. But you know what? I can.
It sounds like it was happening from the inside out.
Oh,
right?
Geez.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that they're equally as. I think that they're equally as devastating. Because I wanted to die. I didn't care, man. I was dead inside.
So you get to the recovery center in Austin, and what happens there? Like what?
Oh, I was the model patient. I had my binder, and I had sticky notes where I color coded, and I had my hot waters, and I would turn in my homework, and this is what I did, and I was on time, and I was I was sober.
Did you feel good? Like just being off alcohol for,
sure,
for a while?
yeah. Well, they had to medically detox me, and emergency room a couple of times, blood pressure tanked, and because I would seize,
So you were around the clock. At this point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, probably close to a gallon of vodka a day. Yeah, and so once they got me, to where I could stand being in my own skin, which took about 2 weeks. I was learning everything. I was the model patient. I think they called us clients at the time.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
And but I you know what? Here's the deal. I remember Rick, my husband, coming down for a family meeting, right? And so it was
at this point in time. How long had you guys been married?
Ballpark 9 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he knows you extremely well.
For sure.
And you guys worked together for a while. Yeah.
We still work together. Yeah, we were together 24/7. and so he.
So this is somebody who knows you very well.
Yeah. And he was drink for drink with me, but he's not one of us. He's a weirdo that can stop. But he came down and it was me and him and the psychologist and I remember Rick looking him in his eyes and he said, "She's the strongest woman I've ever known in my life. Why doesn't she have the willpower to stop that? Stop this, stop drinking?" And Pete, I remember losing my shit. I thought, because I remember just that, how could you possibly think that I was doing this willingly? How could you possibly think that this is what I want? How could you think that? Because that was an enlightenment. Now, it didn't change me. Okay, let's be clear on it. It was the head knowledge that it's like I literally was drinking against my will. I was drinking against my will. I didn't want this. If that's what you think, you need to go back to Waco, pack your shit, and move on with your life, because you don't understand what I'm going through. I didn't understand what I was going through, but I knew I was not doing it willingly. I knew that. That was now. Another 2 weeks until I graduated, got the keychain, and Rick picked me up and brought me back to Waco, and they advised you go to meetings, you and so I did go to meetings. That's it.
Okay.
So it was within 4 months that and I remember, I was in.
So
Walmart.
4 months from that intervention, you do change your date and everything changes.
No, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
But I remember within a week or two of being home from Austin recovery, And I'm in Walmart, and I'm walking by the travel section where they have all the little travel size shampoos and stuff like that.
It's usually the stuff I buy.
I remember seeing the mouthwash, and instantly a conversation that I'd had a couple of years previous with a treatment center person said, we have some degenerates that come in and they're actually drinking mouthwash, something activated. And I bought a couple of them. And that's what started the mouthwash crazy behavior.
Yeah.
Crazy
well, it's
behavior.
alcoholic behavior, but it's part of the package.
But I wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
But I wasn't drinking. That's how sick I was still. Yeah, man. I just look at that and I'm just thinking, how did I survive that? How did I survive?
What was home life like when you got back after that treatment and you have like these 4 months where?
Well, before I started with the mouthwash, I mean, I had probably a good solid 2 weeks of thinking this is what sobriety is, and I was happy, and I was cured. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I wasn't drinking, so I felt like I was being successful.
Uh-huh.
But inside, the storm was starting. It was starting all over again, and it was coming.
Did you notice you were going, and this is tough because you might not remember, but I know this happened with me because I was in and out for a little bit. You're going to meetings and you're thinking stuff, but you're not telling people about it. You're not sharing it.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
No, and I remember sitting, of course, I call it the exit seat. You know the room. Right by the door, right? The exit seat is what I call it because I can exit real quick. I remember sitting in the exit seat every time I would show up.
That seat should have an eject button, right?
Right. And they say at the end of the meeting, you need to, there's certain things else you need to do. And I remember thinking, y'all must be really stupid if you need someone to help you read what's on the wall. I can read.
Yeah.
I'm a half-assed intelligent person. I can read. I know what it's. Okay, yes, I do that. So I was not all in any way, shape, or form. I barely had a toe in the door. Now that I look back at it, I just didn't know what I didn't know. Now again, make no mistake. Before Austin Recovery, I had I don't know if you remember the Freeman Center or if you were around at that time. The Centacor ended up buying the Freeman Center, but the Freeman Center was a detox center. It was basically a weekend getaway. Okay. I mean, let's just call it what it was. And I went there at least 4 times to detox before.
Off vodka and stuff?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and they would medically detox you. And, of course, my husband, and I'm not saying anything I wouldn't say if he wasn't sitting right here, he has an award, the biggest award for the greatest enabler on the planet. He would deliver pizzas, to us, all of us that were in detox,
Really?
And yeah. So it was just a weekend. But when I would try to stop on my own, that's when I would seize. Yeah, anytime I would try to stop on my own. So I at least knew that. So you just didn't stop. I mean,
you
solve
can't.
that problem.
Yeah.
If you weren't ready for a weekend getaway at the Freeman Center, then you just...
The moment I realized that the pain from a hangover didn't have to continue. I mean, I was a kid, but I remember when I discovered, okay, so you're telling me if I drink before noon, I'll feel okay, maybe even good? Like, why would you ever stop?
Well,
that's not normal.
Or feel normal.
Yeah,
feel normal. Yeah, I mean, it was at least a solid year and a half that I would wake up in the morning, and I mean, I would be shaking.
Walk me through that real quick because I want to go back to your recovery and stuff. But just this one, those dark days before you start with the mouthwash and stuff, you're just you're around the clock drinker. What is that? What's a day like? You wake up and you're.
Oh, see, they weren't. To me, at the time, I didn't know they were dark days. They were. I was just living. I was, and I wouldn't even say at the time I was thinking I was surviving. I was just living, and that's what I did. I needed,
to live.
And so, the husband got to where he was really annoyed at the fact because I would stop going to work. I mean, he would be left on his own because we do work together. But I would have alcohol all over the house hidden. I mean, just hidden. Most of the time hidden where I couldn't find it because I would hide it when I was drunk and not. I mean, when we moved, the amount of alcohol we found, we could have stocked an entire nightclub. I mean, it was unreal. But I would have to have a couple of shots of vodka just to be able to not shake enough to where I could put on makeup and I wasn't eating. I mean, I got down to, oh my goodness. I mean, I'm 5'8", and I got down to close to 130 pounds.
Were people worried about you?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like family and stuff.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, I can remember my daughter. I was sitting with my legs crossed towards her, and I can remember her putting her wrist or her hand around my ankle.
Like, and she's like, I can grab it. Yeah.
And her fingers touched. And she said, what is going on? And I'm like, well, I'm just losing weight. You know, I'm in a size, you know, and being proud of it.
Yeah.
You know, but it would get to where I couldn't, my body would only accept, I mean, I was living off of beef broth. I would take a beef bouillon cube and heat it up and try to drink some of that because I could not eat solid food.
Wow.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was murdering my body.
And at work, were you like functioning still? Could you
because there was a perfect convenience store between my house in China Spring where I would drive into Waco, and they had the 4-packs of the wine, which you know I would settle for, if you would, because those could hide easily in my purse or in my pockets, in my desk drawers. You know, I would grab those, and I spent so much time strategizing.
Oof,
especially strategizing if I woke up one morning and I knew that there was just no way I could manage going into the office. I had to try to strategize on how to manipulate my husband to bring alcohol home.
Which is exhausting.
And it worked, but it
worked.
And it 100% it worked.
Yeah.
It you know, and he, God bless him, you know, he didn't know what he didn't know as well.
And as alcoholics too, that's like the topical alcohol. Like for instance, like somebody brings a bottle of wine. Okay. But now I'm a drunk, so I'm going to run off and do shots or whatever. But I come back and drink the social.
Right.
And so.
At least in appearance to you, you see that I'm just simply having a glass of
wine. And there is a little alcohol smell on me. It's just, as a drunken action, I remember it was such a relief to be like, okay, I'm going to have this drink with them. And then I can, it kind of green lights.
But I have more back here that I can. And the sheer panic feeling of, at least when you're sensible, because how many times I drove intoxicated is staggering. Yeah. I should have killed hundreds of people. I mean, truthfully, drove drunk with my kids in the car. I mean, I did all the things. Yeah.
And I love that you say that in a sense, because there's so many women out there who, not so many, I don't know, but like that's like the worst secret they have. You know, like, oh, I can't believe, and there's so much shame in that. But now here you are admitting it. People, you're doing that. You're not. I love when you said that. It almost. You didn't want to do that.
No.
That wasn't your will that you did that.
And there was at the time there wasn't shame in it because I didn't, that was my illness. It was what I did. I was fine. Yeah. I was fine. Yeah. You know, when in reality I know now and when, you know, I was talking with the lady yesterday that I was telling you about that she has a sister that's an alcoholic that I was trying to just kind of help her. And just talking about the shame, you know, that when you know, you were talking about, you said a little while ago, you know, people think that when you get sober, everything's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, literally. And I try not to say that, but oh my God, the shame that you have to face, right? Now that I can't go away. I don't have that alcohol to help my mind go away. You're making me face all of the things I did.
And the only shot you have is, in my experience, is recovery. The only shot you have. Yeah. Otherwise, that shame, it builds and builds and sends you right back out. Or
So you know, when you, and luckily, you know, there's the, you know, a program of recovery that allows you to do this, you know, literally one step at a time. To where it's not all piled on you at one time. I mean, imagine starting at a later step, and you know how that would cover you up. But I remember it occurred, and you might go, well, didn't you know that was wrong? No, at the time, I didn't care. I did care, but I was incapable of knowing right from wrong, almost.
Oh, I understand. I mean,
it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I 100% understand it. So now let's go back to the magic, because I was just curious about that. You get sober, you know, you feel like you've dropped all that shit, and now you're facing all this, but you're doing it with a program of recovery, and the most important part is you've bought in. You're now willing. You know, the best part about this program is it's made for assholes like me that are like, well, I don't know that I'm going to do that right now, but I'm willing to do it at some point.
Right.
Like, how does your life start to change?
I changed. It wasn't, and it just, you know, not everybody came with me in recovery as far as family members and stuff like that.
That's a great way of putting it. So people were like, oh, we're not sure.
You know, yeah. It was, you know, that's good for you, you know. But I changed my views on things, how I spoke, how I treated people. I no longer looked at every single human being as an adversary trying to get me. I mean, at first I think that I looked at people just indifferently. It was just like, okay, you're there. You know, over time, I can now see that we are all of us, just as sick as the next one. We all, you know, right? We all have a vice. For God's sakes, if it's not food, it's alcohol, it's drugs, it's anger, it's depression, it's anxiety.
It's your phone, whatever.
Pick one.
Yeah.
What are you powerless over? What, you know, it's like, just pick one. Everyone is hurting. Everyone is hurting in one way or another, you know? And it's just like, you don't have to live like that. You don't have to, you know, my husband is almost jealous of me being an alcoholic. And he has said as much. He said, you get to, right? And I use that term a lot with people around me. I get to work a program and he said, you get to go into a room full of people that know exactly how you feel. A room full of people that you have given authority to look at you and go, are you being a little selfish in that? Or, you know, have you thought about it this way? You know, whereas if I said that to you, you'd claw my face off. Yeah. You know, he said, you get to go take your problems and put them on the table and leave them there. I don't have that, you know? And I just thought, how sad. You don't have to be, you don't have to almost die from a substance abuse to become willing to let God move into your life, you know, you know, that scares a lot of people, you know, talking about the whole God thing. And I, you know, I call him God because I don't have another name. When I'm sad, when I'm super sad or super scared, it's Daddy. Yeah. Uh-huh. It's Daddy. Yeah. You know? My dad was not a good father at all. So that was probably another hang up at some point in time. But I changed. And when I changed my mind, you know, how I looked at things and how I reacted to things. And in doing that, everything around me changed. You know, my oldest daughter had said to me not too long ago, as a matter of fact, you know, I know God because you're an alcoholic. Yeah. My husband would say, I know God better because he was raised in the church. Every time the doors were open, he was there. But he knows God in such a different way now, just because, you know, the thing, and I'm so glad I didn't have a conception of God. I have a juvenile, dumb it down relationship with God. It's
but that doesn't make it any less powerful. No, it's extremely powerful.
I got to tell you, Pete, and quite frankly, it might even be more powerful. I maybe or maybe not, but I don't get hung up on religion. I am not a religious person. Someone will say, "Where do you go to church?" I go to a meeting. I go to my people. You know. But I know God in such a way now that he has actually, my husband has actually said, you know, I have a better relationship with a God of my understanding, and I'm not an alcoholic, you know. So those type of residual effects that we can have on people that are hurting just as bad as we were, you know, is just
It's amazing.
It's important to know that.
Yeah, it's important to know that, like, you're now the exact, it's a 180 of what you were before.
Absolutely.
You know, like, and you have the ability to tap into this, somebody of the spirit, this light that people can get hit with that are close enough to you.
You know, the perfect example would be going up to a countertop at a restaurant or something like that, and that person, that clerk, that cashier is in a shit mood and snaps. You know, whereas before I would read them the menu. You know what I mean? I would like to speak with your manager. You are here to serve. You know, I was, but now I'm able to go, what has happened that has made that person so upset or so angry? What can I do? And it's instant. It's like it's just simply going, how's your day going? Mm-hmm. Are you having a good day? You know, and these bracelets, I wear a WWJD bracelet every single day of my life, and I have since 2020, and there's a big story behind that. It's a beautiful story. But I carry those with me in my handbag, and when God says they need one, I just get it out and go, what's your favorite color? You know, because I have blue and green and all this, and I'm telling you the miracles that have happened from these bracelets. And
what's the story behind it?
I'll tell you, 2020 happened, and it was in March, and you know, Rick and I have a mortgage company,
and we're just getting started with all the COVID stuff.
Well,
March of 2020,
right? They had started to shut things down.
Yeah.
It hadn't really hit our area yet, but the news, you know, we're watching the news all the time, and you know, we own a mortgage company, and we get an email from you know, one of our biggest investors that says, yeah, we're not putting rates out. And I went to Rick and I'm like, oh, what? They're not putting rates out. What does that mean? And he said they're not going to be writing any loans anytime soon, or allowing, you know, to accepting loans. And I said, okay, no, but what does that mean? What does that mean? And he said, Kristine, they don't know if people are losing their jobs left and right. They don't know who's going to be able to pay, who's able not, if they're going to be able to verify, employment the way we do with they don't know what's going to happen, so they're not doing anything. And this lasted for about 3 days. I mean, into about the second day, I started to lose my shit, started to lose my programs. I started to lose my God. Yeah. And I was in such fear. And I remember I was standing. The first time that God, which I hear from God all the time, but I was stirring spaghetti sauce, and I'll never forget this. Rick was around the corner sitting in his chair, and I was crying, and I was trying to cry quietly because he was, I think, trying to keep his shit together and just going, it's going to be fine, because he knew I would go off the rails. If he goes off the rails, hang it up for me, you know. And I remember crying, and I was so scared, because it's not like he can go to work and we'll have an income. We do the same damn thing. We're in the same boat. If there's a hole, we're both sinking. and Pete, God just said, "Are you serious? Is this what we're doing?" So I saved you on March 14, 2012, and told you you're worried just to bring you here crying over your spaghetti sauce to watch you. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. It's going to be okay. And so I walked around the corner to Rick and I said, it really is going to be okay, you know? And so the next day I'm driving to a title company to pick up whatever I was doing. I was on Sanger and Owen. I could take you right there. And God literally jumped into my passenger seat, and he's like, okay, we need something to keep you busy. And this was instant. This was not just it was do you remember the WWJD bracelets that you wore when you were a teenager, right? They were around. Yeah. And I thought, I remember that. And he's like, you are to find those. You are to buy some, give them away until I tell you to stop. So I went to the title company, did my thing, and I went back to the house where Rick was. And I walked in the door, and Peter was beautiful. I said to him, I got to tell you what God just said to me. And he's like, okay. And I said, he told me to find, do you know the WWJD bracelets? Like, yeah. I said, God wants me to buy some and give them away. And he said, well, let's start looking for some. He didn't say, that's stupid. Why would God want, he could have said a million things that would have made me cower and not follow through.
It goes back to our friend that was like, hey, tell me more about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I get on Amazon, and I found these silly little bracelets. They're the rubber bracelets that WWJD. And so I ordered 36 in a pack. I ordered a couple of them. And so I put them in a little pouch in my handbag, and I just again became willing. And the number of people, I've given away probably 2,200 now, upwards. And, we took a trip, one of the most beautiful moments, we took a trip to the Grand Canyon. We drove in December of 2020. And we stopped at an IHOP. And we walk inside, and there's a guy standing there. He said, "Hey, welcome. Would you like table?" And, yeah. And so he was just very friendly. And so God said, "Yep, him." So I get the pouch out. So we sit down, and I said, and I asked him his name, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, but what's your name? And so he told me, and I said, "What's your favorite color?" Buddy the Elf. What's your favorite color? And he said blue. And I handed it to him, Pete, and he started to cry. And of course, I don't know, and I'm just kind of looking at him and he said, "I'm 3 weeks sober," and he said, "You have no idea how much I needed this right now." And I said, "Can you sit down?
Yeah.
Can you sit?" He was a manager, and so I told him about my sobriety, and we exchanged information and social media and stuff like that. And I said, "If I can be of service to you in any way, shape, or form, please let me know, because I would love to do that for you." All the way down to giving it away at an Arby's drive-through window. I gave one to a lady, and she started to cry, and she said, "I'm going through a divorce," and she said, I just want to murder my husband." She said, "I'm sick of him." She said, "And my dad just said to me this morning, how would Jesus treat him?"
Yeah.
And so when I gave her that, "What would Jesus do?" She started crying. She said, "That tells me now again that I'm not behaving properly, that I need to." So little things like that if you're open and willing for God to use you, the sky's the limit.
Well, you're spreading love. I mean, you're spreading love. It's contagious. You're spreading it, and if people slam the door on it, then they still have more work to do. You know what I mean?
And that's never happened.
Yeah.
And so for me, I can see now where God's like, "Okay, I see that storm brewing inside. We need to keep you busy, keep you busy and looking for opportunities to, and wait for me to tell you. Wait for me to tell you when the time is, lady taking my blood, a couple of weeks ago, I'm like, "What's your favorite color?" And people just love them, just the little reminders.
Yeah.
So again, just being willing, where he's going to reach you just in the craziest ways.
What would you tell people, because we got to wrap up soon? What do you tell people that say, "I'm hopeless," or people that feel like they can't get one day sober? Somebody that asks you, "Hey, what do I do?"
First, to tell someone with my words, there is hope. When you're in that, when you're so far into that storm, it's so noisy. You can't hear. You just can't. You can't hear. So what I would tell someone is go talk to someone who find someone who's in recovery, because we're everywhere. We're everywhere.
Yeah.
There is. Oh my. Everybody knows somebody who has suffered from this disease, and my experience, at least, everybody knows somebody who has recovered. Find someone who has recovered and just follow them. Go where they go. Just be willing. Even bring your doubts, pack them up, bring them with you. That's okay. But set them right inside the door if you need to, right by the exit seat. But just show up. Mm-hmm. Just show up. And again, my experience is it has to, if you're not willing to do that, you've not had enough hell. The demons aren't done with you yet.
What about your family and everyone, and you, I guess? How did it change for you when you started to tell people you were sober? Did you tell people right away?
Immediately.
Right away?
Immediately.
That's what I did too. That's what I did too.
No,
yeah.
but you know what?
And I'm not recommending that for everybody. It's different for everybody.
Well, I do recommend it for everybody, but I know that it's not for everybody. You know what I mean? And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. I was such a good liar and such a good manipulator.
Yeah.
That I didn't trust myself. Even though God himself showed up in that car, on March 14, 2012 at approximately 11:35 a.m., I still didn't trust myself. But I knew that if I told you within a few minutes of being around me, that you would help protect me. Uh-huh. That you would, if I were to order a drink, you would go, "Hey, what? Wait a minute." You would at least have some type, I would have maybe a defense. And it even got to where, I'm a member of a women's networking group that meets once a month at the.
I love this story. I've heard you tell this. I heard you tell it after it happened.
Oh, for sure. No, for sure. And you get up and it's networking. You give your little 30-second commercial, for your business, and we have a mortgage company and blah blah blah. But what I did was the first time, and I didn't even realize that I had done it until after I did it. I stood up with the microphone straight up to my face, and I said, "Hi, I'm Kristine. I'm an alcoholic." Oh. And it was funny because half the room kind of they kind of laughed uncomfortably or thinking I was joking, but then they realized I was serious. And I went on to just not skip a beat, and I'm like, we have the common mortgage group, and we and we do FHA, thanks, bye, and sat down. But I'm telling you, the lady I met with yesterday, whose sister was an alcoholic, she
stems from that.
That stems from that.
Uh-huh.
So is that not God working? And so now it's a running, air quote joke that every time I introduce myself, it's, "Hi, I'm Kristine. I'm an alcoholic."
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Well, and because for me, I might as well, because that's who I am. And that's the number one thing about me, I would like them to know.
Yeah. And some people take issue with it. It's like, no, that's who you were. It's like, no, don't you rob me of that. Don't you dare.
Recently, that's happened to me. People are kind of like, "Oh no, you like you were like that." No, I'm like, yeah, that was me.
But it's the greatest thing about me.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Do you understand that?
Totally.
It's my greatest asset. That it's what birthed me into a person that belonged.
Yeah.
Who else?
That belonged. That felt that.
Don't you dare try to take that away from me, because I'm telling you, all I've got to do is get one shot of vodka, and I'm right back.
Yeah.
So no, I don't ever. And we had that debate last night in a meeting. It's like, okay, are you recovering? Or are you recovered? No. I know certain things say recovered. I don't choose to be recovered, because in my sick little mind, that means I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anymore. No. I want to be recovering until the day I die.
Let me ask you one last thing. Are you going to keep this message going with a vehicle of your own, maybe?
As loud and proud as I possibly can. But here's what I also know is I will get in my way, and as long as it's from God, I will do whatever He calls me to do. But at times I have a problem seeing which one is Him and which one is me. So
how do you tell? Eventually, what do you do? That's a great. That's a great line.
A lot of times I don't do anything, because if it's from God, I won't be able to stop it.
Yeah.
I have to just be willing. I have to be willing to jump on that bus when it passes by, kind of thing. And I don't think I'll have a choice. There's a message, not just for people like us, for people that are hurting, that are just hurting inside and dealing with their own form of addiction. Like I said, whether it be depression, anxiety, fear, all of those things that just need to know. Let's just talk. When you talk about it, when you bring it out into the light, it's not as scary. That boogeyman is not scary when you make it come out into the light, and the light is talking about it, and realizing that it's okay.
Yeah.
That I can be an alcoholic and still be a good person and fun and helpful and of use and worthy.
And I think that terminal uniqueness that we can have as alcoholics can keep people from getting sober. Like, okay, Kristine can do that, but I can't.
Right.
You can.
Right.
That is one of the biggest mind fucks out there too. You can.
100%.
Yeah, you just got to show up and be willing.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
I don't think so. I think we kind
You're
of covered.
so special. I am.
I love being an alcoholic. I do. I'm so, I remember there's a person that comes in that says, I'm her name, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I remember the first time I heard that, and I thought, that's such a load of horse shit. That's so stupid. Well, stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, honey, I'm the most grateful alcoholic you'll ever meet in your life. And it's true.
Yeah. Well, I've lived it. I've seen it. And even today, one thing happened when we were talking, and I say, it's not for everybody. And I disagree. I think that is one of the most beautiful things about you, is like you have a way. Because one of the reasons I think people like you are great is because you're no bullshit. You're not going to co-sign on all kinds of bullshit. You have, people have a code that I really admire, you know, and they're not, and maybe it's being an athlete with coaches always kind of browbeating me, telling me what I needed to do. So I love being around people like you who just have a code, you have a way you believe.
Wouldn't you say, Pete, that code is just simple honesty?
Yeah.
Can you think about that? How just being honest, and you might go, okay.
People are afraid to be who they are.
Yes.
People are afraid of that, and
it's killing them.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's killing them from the inside, because all of that shit that, no matter if you're an alcoholic or not, all of the shit that we carry, you got to put it somewhere, and most people put it inside. And they carry it around, and it's killing people. And it's like, no, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna make you talk.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I love it. All right,
we're done. That was
a lot of
unbelievable.
fun.
Thanks so much for listening to The Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.